Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, an illegal homeowner association built over 100 homes on my inherited property without my permission, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here is what happened. It all started back in 2002 when my grandfather Jose passed away. He had lived his whole life on a massive plot of land down in rural Paraguay, way out in the countryside, about an hour away from the nearest town. My grandpa's property covered dozens of acres of beautiful rolling hills, small forests, and even a little stream running through it. It was an absolutely gorgeous and peaceful place, and when Grandpa Jose died, he shockingly left the entire property and everything on it to me in his will. I was only 22 years old at the time and in college up in the United States. I had no idea what to do with all that land down in Paraguay. Part of me thought about trying to sell it, but my grandpa had made me promise to try to hang on to the family land if I could. So I decided to just let it be for the time being and deal with it after I finished university. Well, after graduating, I got a good job up here in the corporate world and life just kept rolling on quickly. Before I knew it, 20 years had passed without me ever revisiting or even really thinking much about that massive plot of land my grandpa had left me down in Paraguay. By the way, I think Americans call it Paraguay and Brits call it Paraguay. I think I'm more British in that regard. Anyway, I had just let it sit completely vacant and untouched for 2 whole decades. Then, earlier this year, I got an extremely surprising letter in the mail. It was from some homeowners association calling themselves the Elk Hills Community Association, down in Paraguay near where my family's land was located. They claimed that at some point around 2010, their association had started developing my grandpa's old property into a whole new housing community with over 100 single-family homes. I was completely blindsided and in utter disbelief. How could they possibly do that without my knowledge or approval as the rightful owner of the land? The audacity of it was mind-blowing. This letter stated that they were the legitimate owners of the property now and had been paying the annual property taxes on it for over a decade. Their arrogant letter basically ordered me to stop contesting their ownership and stop harassing them, or else they'd get litigious. You can imagine how angry I was after reading that outrageous letter. I immediately got on the phone and contacted my grandpa's old legal team in Paraguay to look into this homeowner association's claims. And sure enough, the lawyers were able to confirm that somehow around 2010, this Elk Hills Community Association had falsely claimed ownership over the land, gotten it rezoned for housing by lying to the local authorities, and then brazenly started building an entire neighborhood of over 100 homes on my property. Furthermore, apparently quite a bit of corruption and bribing was involved in this whole ordeal too, according to some locals. My blood was absolutely boiling. I could not believe the unmitigated gall and lawlessness of this insane HOA. Clearly their criminal behavior and illegal land grab has been going on for over a decade at this point, but none of that mattered. I was still the rightful owner and they needed to be stopped and held accountable. I hopped on a plane down to Paraguay as soon as I could go to see the property and this rogue neighborhood with my own eyes. When I arrived and saw the scale of the development on my land, I was utterly blown away. It was a whole village of nice little suburban homes crammed together on my grandpa's beautiful open countryside land. There were paved roads, streetlights, kids playing in the streets, the whole 9 yards. Absolutely unbelievable. I immediately identified who appeared to be the leaders of this phony community association and approached them about their illegal occupation of the land. They brushed me off aggressively, insisting that after paying the property taxes for over 10 years, this land was legally theirs under a local so-called homestead law. The disrespect and audacity was just astounding. That is when I met Karen, the clearly deranged president of the Elk Hills Community Association. This woman was a total battle axe and just downright nasty. When I tried explaining to Karen that I was the rightful owner, she started yelling and cursing at me, calling me a liar and a troublemaker right out on the street. It was just nuts. Karen arrogantly told me, "We have lived here for over 10 years and built a wonderful community on this land. We will never let a greedy little worm like you take it from us and our families. Get off our property immediately before I call the police on you for trespassing, you lying piece of trash." I couldn't believe the unhinged attitude and aggressive entitlement from Karen and her cronies. But I stayed calm and simply responded, "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is my property that you have illegally occupied and developed. But don't worry, I will let the courts sort out who the real owners are." And with that, I politely walked away and headed straight to my lawyer's office. The legal battle was on. I got the best law firm in the entire country involved to sue the pants off Karen, the Elk Hills Community Association, and anyone else involved in this insane illegal land grab scheme. The evidence was crystal clear that my grandpa's land had been seized through fraudulent means. And well, we were able to freeze the association's bank accounts and assets during the court process. Meanwhile, the confrontation escalated in some crazy ways back on the property. While the court case played out over a long time, Karen and her crew tried pulling all sorts of shady intimidation tactics to try scaring me off. Strange, threatening notes were left on my car, someone tried breaking into my hotel room at night, and I even found a bag of feces burning on my front doorstep one morning. The craziness just kept escalating from Karen's deranged mob. However, I did not budge an inch. I knew I was in the right and I was not letting these maniacs scare me away. The level of malice and vitriol coming from Karen and her minions was just unreal. Several times when I'd go to video record the construction work being done, expanding their illegal housing development on my property, the workers would actually try to assault me and smash my camera. These people clearly had no fear of authority or the law whatsoever. It was a true menace to society that had been allowed to fester for over a decade. Things finally came to a head about a year into the legal battle. One day, a crew of workers with a small army of thuggish-looking security escorts started showing up bright and early every morning to continue rapidly expanding the illegal housing development on my land, even while the court case was still pending. I knew they were trying to create facts on the ground by rapidly building out even more houses and making their land-seized community even bigger before the court could rule. Well, I was ready for them this time. I got a court order authorizing the police to monitor and control the situation on the property while the trial was still underway. So then when Karen's crew of construction workers and thugs showed up yet again to keep expanding, they were blocked and ousted from the property by the authorities, siding with me as the rightful landowner. This led to some absolutely insane scenes of grown adults throwing tantrums, cursing, and even throwing rocks at the police. The level of self-entitlement and lawlessness was just off the charts. Karen's unhinged antics crossed all kinds of lines, like trying to bribe officials, spinning a wild false narrative in the local media about being victimized by a greedy foreign landowner, and even unfurling a gigantic crude banner from a roof labeling me a racial slur. They were pulling out every stop to try to weaken my resolve and smear me in the eyes of the public. But none of it worked, it just kept strengthening my determination to see them get the book thrown at them in court. And I knew the evidence was overwhelmingly in my favor as the illegitimate property owner. Finally, after years of bitter fighting against an absolute menace to society, I got the ruling I'd been patiently waiting for. The court resoundingly declared me as the legal owner of the land. In a scathing ruling, the judge eviscerated the Elk Hills Community Association as a criminal enterprise founded on lies, fraud, and bribery. The community was ordered to dismantle completely and vacate the land within 90 days or face massive fines and potential jail time for its ringleaders. For Karen and her deranged cabal, the gravy train had finally come to an end. They were ordered to pay me over $7 million in damages for their decade plus of illegally occupying, developing, and profiting from my inherited property. And on top of that, the criminal investigation quickly snowballed to uncover all sorts of other frauds and schemes the community leaders were involved in, from tax evasion to money laundering and even more. In the end, I ended up having to hire a professional crew to come in and completely demolish the entire illegal housing development on my land once the 90-day period was up. It was an extremely expensive and laborious process, tearing down over 100 homes, ripping up paved roads, removing underground utilities and power lines, and trying to restore the land back to its natural state as much as possible. But of course it had to be done. As for Karen and the former ringleaders of the Elk Hills Community Association criminal enterprise, well, they faced severe legal consequences. Karen herself ended up getting sentenced to 5 years in prison for her leadership role in the decade-long fraud scheme, and she also had to pay over $2 million of the $7 million in damages that the court had awarded to me. A handful of Karen's top lieutenants in the corrupt community association were also given jail sentences ranging from 1 to 4 years, in addition to hefty fines they were ordered to pay from any remaining assets they had. The illegal development company they had hired to construct the housing community also got completely dismantled and banned from ever operating in the country again. It was deeply satisfying to see such thorough justice getting served against these lawless people who had behaved with zero regard for property rights or the rule of law. Their dangerous sense of entitlement and criminality had spiraled completely out of control over the years into a full-blown criminal operation built on fraud, intimidation tactics, and even violence against anyone who tried to stop them. Of course, none of this intense legal battle came cheap for me either. All the lawyers, private security teams to protect myself, and the eventual demolition and land restoration costs easily ran into the millions of dollars. But I considered it a worthwhile investment to defend my family's property rights and to take down a nefarious criminal enterprise that had been allowed to metastasize for over a decade. If I had not taken a stand, just imagine how much bigger and more emboldened their lawless operation could have become. In the aftermath, Karen's neighborhood signs and logos were all torn down too. Within some time, it had been completely returned to its natural state, the gorgeous, empty countryside property that my grandpa had loved so dearly and willed to me. It felt like a huge burden had been lifted and his beloved family land had finally been secured. As for the several hundred homeowners who had been duped into buying homes from the fraudsters, they eventually did receive some compensation from court-ordered victim restitution funds. But many of them were still completely financially devastated by suddenly seeing their homes and life savings disappear after investing in what they had been deceitfully led to believe was a legitimate housing community. And wow, ripe stars, I gotta say, this story was absolutely insane, and while I feel happy for OP that things turned out the way they did, I also feel kind of bad for at least some of the homeowners because I don't think that all of them were criminals. All of their houses getting torn down, despite them, probably at least some of them, not knowing that the property/land was illegally acquired by Karen and the HOA. Definitely a heartbreaking situation because I can imagine there are probably some families who lost their entire life savings and now their lives are destroyed. Anyway, there was also a very interesting comment in the comment section and I wanted to read it to you. It goes like this. This story honestly gave me anxiety just reading it because it reminds me of a boundary-pushing situation one of my friends is currently trapped in with his neighbors. It's not nearly as extreme as having 100 homes illegally built on your property, thankfully. But there are definitely some concerning parallels in terms of the audacity and entitlement from these neighbors that keeps escalating. So my buddy Greg inherited this modest little ranch-style house in the suburbs from his grandparents a few years back. It's a nice enough place in an okay neighborhood, and well, apparently the family living a few doors down from him have had it out for him ever since he moved in. I'm not sure if it's because Greg is younger, a single guy without kids, while they are an older couple with teenage sons. But these psycho neighbors have just constantly tried claiming his property as their own in the most obnoxious ways. It started out relatively tame at first, like them mowing over the boundaries and cutting his grass without permission, letting their dogs routinely use his yard as a bathroom, or even potting plants and leaving decorations on his side of the property line. Just being totally oblivious to boundaries in that passive-aggressive Karen kind of way, you know. But Greg is a pretty laid-back, live-and-let-live kind of guy, so he would just politely ask them to stop doing those things and respect that it's his property. He tried killing them with kindness basically, and well, that approach definitely stopped working after a while because these people just never let up with pushing every possible boundary. At one point, the dad from the neighbor family legitimately tried telling Greg that a good 15 to 20 feet of his backyard space actually belonged to them because of some BS about an old contractor making a mistake with the property lines years ago. Just a brazen attempt to straight up steal a part of his land. The audacity of these people is just mind-blowing. When Greg showed them the deed and land survey telling them to get lost, they got all huffy and started giving him the cold shoulder anytime they would see him outside. Things just kept escalating over the following year to the point where the neighbors were full on trespassing and even trying to make bogus claims about Greg vandalizing their yard or harassing them somehow. There were so many police calls made by both sides that I think the officers started getting sick of having to go over there and deal with their BS. The situation has unfortunately turned into this ongoing petty turf war that both sides keep trying to one-up the other one. It's seriously like a slice of that HOA madness from the original story playing out in real life. Recently, it got to the point where Greg put up security cameras around his property and installed a big wooden fence just to finally get some privacy and peace from these weirdos. And you won't believe what these nutso neighbors did in response. They started blasting air horns or letting off air raid sirens at like 6 AM every morning to harass Greg. On top of that, they started shining blinding bright spotlights over the fence at all hours of the night. It's like a damn prank war taken to the extreme by these 40-something-year-old adults acting like unhinged toddlers. So yeah, reading that story about the unrelenting harassment and intimidation tactics from the insane homeowner association definitely struck a nerve with me because of the similarities to what my friend has been dealing with. The levels of deranged entitlement, petty vindictiveness and blatant disrespect from crappy neighbors are just wild. Although obviously Greg's situation has not descended into the utter criminality of having an entire neighborhood illegally constructed on his land. I really feel for him having to spend so much time and money installing cameras, fences and alarm systems just to get some basic peace and privacy on property that is rightfully his. He's trying to go through the proper legal channels too by filing complaints and restraining orders against these psycho neighbors. Anyway, it has been an incredibly draining experience for Greg. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, if you would be in Greg's situation, what would you have done? How would you have dealt with these crazy neighbors? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even post a comment because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in assisting me help beat the stupid YouTube algorithm. The next one is titled, "My wife left me after she got in shape and now wants to get back together." I, 32 male, was married to my wife, 33 female, for 4 years and we had a great marriage so far. I was madly in love with my wife. She fell into depression mainly due to her job in 2022. I tried to support her in every way and suggested her going to the gym or doing any kinds of sports to de-stress. I had my own depression episode before we got married and what saved me was going to the gym. She agreed to that and we started going there together. I couldn't go as frequent as in the past since my workload got heavier after my promotion, however I tried my best to be there with her. She used to be a bit chubby, which I loved, and after seeing some changes with her body, she started to go there regularly. It also helped her with depression and she got better. I was really happy to see her get better and livelier. She looked more confident, got more aggressive in bed and so on. However, after a while that confidence level started to affect our relationship for the worse. She started going to the parties and going outside to a point that she completely stopped doing her share in the house. That proceeded with me seeing her getting flirty with a guy at a meetup we went to. I communicated my feelings to her and she dismissed these. After several of these, I had her sit down with me and told her that she is riding high on her newly found confidence and emotions right now. I clearly stated she should not make decisions or actions according to that confidence right now. I know it well, it was one of my worst traits. I used to be extremely emotionally driven in the past. I suggested we go to a marriage counselor and then hell broke loose. She said vile things to me like how she realized that she settled down with me after getting better and she could do much better than me. She said I'm insecure and other things. This woman used to be the sweetest person on the earth and I was shocked after hearing the things she said to me. She filed for divorce the following month and I didn't hear much from her other than some lawyer talks. Our court seeing is scheduled the next month and my lawyer told me there's a high chance it'll be concluded then. There's not much to share, similar income, only shared asset is our joint account, similar savings and no kids. The house is my mom's, so it's out of the division. I accepted my marriage is gonna end like that. Last week she called crying and told me she regrets everything. She apologized over and over again, but I felt disappointed. Not angry, not sad, but just disappointed. She did not text me nor call me even once since the divorce started. I did not even know where she was since she just left the home. I told her there's no going back now. She has been messaging me non-stop. My family supports my decision and tells me I shouldn't back down. My in-laws were shocked when they heard about the divorce. They are now telling me to rethink everything. I will 99% sure not back down, but as I said, just looking for validation and maybe wanted to vent. Thank you for reading. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, that sounds like a horrible situation and I feel so bad for OP because to be honest, at first this sounded great. Both of them going to the gym, trying to get more healthy, and then things basically took a 180-degree turn. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments. Now we read some of the relevant comments and here OP responded in regards to if there was a real reason why his wife left him after getting healthy. OP then said, I did not even understand why she left me after getting in shape. I'm in shape too, it's not like I was overweight. It has been a while since going to the gym before we started together, but I was not in bad shape. I could probably get back to my shredded years with 1 year of regular workout. Then another person asked, how long were you separated? Did she tell you why she made the mistake? OP responded, about 5 months. She didn't specify it, I'm not sure what happened that made her call me crying. OP then, in regards to if his wife was having confidence with her weight or not, he responded, thank you for sharing your perspective. My wife was not even overweight or extremely big, just chubby. It actually made her more attractive for me with all the curves. I would even go as far as to say she was more attractive for me before she lost weight. That behavior shift just from losing weight seemed incredibly weird to me. We are officially divorced, there was not much to share, so it went smooth as butter according to my lawyer. I've never talked to her other than through lawyers as much as she wanted me to. She tried to talk to me one-on-one and get closure, but I just don't want that. It's not that I don't care why she left me and what she did during that time, I just don't want to know. I've been living without her for months now. At first it was difficult and I cried all night some days, but after a few months I feel like I came to accept everything. What peace will it give to learn what and why when I already accept everything other than hurting me? For once I want to prioritize my peace of mind in this whole process. My parents and friends are here to support me and I'm glad that I have such a great support circle. As for what my plans are, well, renovate my office room in the house, get back to the gym and live my best life. I've been wanting to renovate my office room for a while now and that's what I'll start with. I also started hitting the gym at the exact same time. I believe my body is good, but I have some extra fat. Dieting proved itself difficult because I'm a tiramisu addict. For the dating part, I uploaded a few apps and tried out how I am doing. I got a decent number of matches, but I realized I don't feel like doing it right now. I'll just focus on my own hobbies, well-being, and wants for now. Thank you for all the support and help in the last post. And some people in the comments said, I'm really sorry you had to go through this awful experience. I agree with you that closure is just for her, as you shed all the tears and pain you needed to. All the best for you, keep looking after yourself and I'm proud of how you have handled yourself during this difficult time. From a cyber friend. OP then responded, I think I gave myself my own closure and the conclusion is having my best life and moving on. That's the best thing I can do, thanks for the good wishes. Then someone else said, when the person who chooses to leave wants closure, just shut the door and keep it shut. They only want to make themselves feel better about their decision, no matter how bad it screwed you over. Bigger and better things to look forward to, OP, all the best. And now for the finale, we have a pro-revenge story from our own subreddit r/ripe stories. It is titled Pro-Revenge Against School Bullies. And by the way, if you want to share your own stories with me, you can either send them to my email ripereddit@gmail.com or you can post them on r/ripe stories on Reddit, where you can post long stories and there's a good chance I will read them in a video. This one was posted by user hotmatch9666. So this goes way back like 25 plus years, but it's still among my most prized victories against people who made my life a nightmare from year 1 of school through year 12. Now, I was always the short fat girl in school, being raised by a single mom along with my older brother in what was becoming a very rich and elite infected town. In the early years, I had a speech impediment that left me sounding a lot like Elmer Fudd. By the time I had conquered that, I was officially a teenager and had discovered the joys of sarcasm. It helped the bullying but didn't eliminate it. Until my last 3 years of school, I started taking an elective class that taught the various types of speeches. They were all interesting, but the one I thoroughly enjoyed was a detailed 8-minute speech with visual aids. Once I realized the class was directly after lunch, I released an evil grin that would make the Grinch look like a Care Bear. However, I knew I couldn't go all in with my first speech. I was playing the long game, planning on taking the class in years 10, 11 and 12. So then, in year 10, I did a deep dive into Vlad Tepes, aka Vlad Dracul, aka Vlad the Impaler, one of a few people Bram Stoker used as inspiration for Dracula. I found a short list of his most dastardly, most depraved, most absolutely repugnant things he ever did and put them into a tidy little speech. By the time I finished giving the speech, my unfiltered enthusiasm for the subject matter made some of the bullies wary of me, so a good first step. Grade 11 arrived and I'd been planning this year's speech since I finished the last one. This year's speech was the 13th century weapons of war and their effects on the human body. The cherry on the top of the speech was that I was permitted to bring a one-handed battle axe to school the day of my speech. Let me tell you, when I whipped that sucker out from behind the poster boards containing my hand-drawn visual aids, every single person that was there for the Vlad the Impaler speech rapidly started scooting their desks away from me. The irrational fear in their eyes brought me malicious glee. Time to plan for year 12. The summer came and went and I'd spent all summer researching what would become my proudest achievement. By this point, the teacher had figured out what I was doing and found it quite amusing. So what would never be allowed as a topic in today's world was greenlit. Medieval torture devices and their effects on the human body. Remember how I said this class was after lunch? Well, as my speech went by, more and more classmates were darting out of class, green as a human could possibly get. By the time I finished my speech, the only person left in the classroom was the teacher. I had cost 27 classmates their lunch, and for the rest of the year, not one bully started with me. I graduated June 5th of 1998, and to this day I'm still known as the girl who cleared a classroom with a speech in 8 minutes flat. And yes, my mom was strangely proud. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.